They say money is the root of all evil. In my experience, it's not the money itself, it's what it reveals about people. Like how quickly a loving family can turn vicious when there are billions at stake, or how a beloved uncle's accidental death might not have been so accidental after all. My name is Ethan Parker, and until last month, I was just a veterinarian running a modest clinic in Seattle. Then my Uncle Richard died, left his entire $4.2 billion fortune to his golden retriever Max, and appointed me as the dog's caretaker. That's when I learned just how dangerous family can be. "This is ridiculous," my cousin Amanda's voice echoed through the mahogany-paneled conference room of Blackwood Associates, one of Seattle's most prestigious law firms. Uncle Richard was clearly not in his right mind. Who leaves billions to a dog? I sat quietly in the corner, Max's head resting on my knee. The golden retriever had barely left my side since I picked him up from Uncle Richard's mansion 3 days ago. There was something almost mournful in his brown eyes, as if he understood more than any of us realized. Mr. Blackwood, a distinguished lawyer in his 60s who'd handled the Parker family's legal affairs for decades, adjusted his glasses. "The will is quite clear. The entire estate, with the exception of some minor charitable bequests, is left in trust for the care and maintenance of Maxwell Parker, with Dr. Ethan Parker appointed as his guardian and trustee. A trust for a dog." My other cousin, Derek, practically spat the words. "This is insane. We're his family." I studied my cousins, wondering if Uncle Richard had seen what I was seeing now. Amanda, immaculate in her designer suit, manicured nails drumming impatiently on the conference table. Derek, his face flushed with anger, the Rolex on his wrist catching the light as he gestured. Both of them had spent years courting Uncle Richard's favor, showing up at every holiday with expensive gifts and elaborate displays of familial devotion. I'd just shown up with veterinary advice when he first adopted Max 3 years ago. "The trust is ironclad," Mr. Blackwood continued. "As Max's caretaker, Dr. Parker will have access to the estate's resources to ensure the dog's comfort and happiness. Upon Max's eventual passing, the remaining assets will be distributed according to a sealed addendum to the will." "And how do we know Ethan won't just live like a billionaire himself?" Amanda demanded. "He's barely making ends meet at that little clinic of his. Now suddenly he has access to billions." "The trust has strict oversight provisions," Mr. Blackwood replied calmly. "All expenditures must be reasonably related to Max's care and welfare. Dr. Parker's personal compensation is set at a modest but comfortable level." "This is about the clinic, isn't it?" Derek turned to me, his voice dripping with accusation. "You manipulated Uncle Richard, convinced him to help you save your failing business." "My clinic isn't failing," I said quietly, scratching behind Max's ears. "And unlike some people, I never asked Uncle Richard for money." The barb hit home. Both Amanda and Derek had borrowed heavily from our uncle over the years: failed business ventures, lavish lifestyle expenses, gambling debts covered quietly to avoid scandal. "At least we didn't take advantage of a sick old man's love for his pet," Amanda snapped. "Uncle Richard wasn't sick," I protested. "He was sharp as ever. We discussed Max's arthritis treatment just last week." "Last week?" Derek's eyes narrowed. "You saw him the day before he died?" I hesitated. I had seen Uncle Richard the day before his fatal fall down the mansion's grand staircase. He'd been agitated, insisting I come check on Max immediately despite the late hour. "Max needs you," he'd said cryptically. "Whatever happens, remember, Max needs you." The next morning, the housekeeper found him at the bottom of the stairs, his neck broken. The police ruled it an accident, a wealthy elderly man living alone, a tragic misstep in the dark. But now, watching my cousin's calculating expressions, I remembered something else about that last visit. Uncle Richard's study door had been ajar, papers scattered across his desk. I'd caught a glimpse of what looked like surveillance photos before he quickly closed the door. "Dr. Parker?" Mr. Blackwood's voice pulled me back to the present. "There's one more matter. Your uncle left this envelope for you to be opened only after the will reading." The envelope was thick, sealed with wax bearing the Parker family crest. Amanda and Derek watched hungrily as I took it. "If there's nothing else," I stood gathering Max's leash, "we should get going. Max needs his afternoon walk." "This isn't over," Derek called after me. "We'll contest the will." Good luck, Mr. Blackwood's voice followed us out. Richard Parker was very thorough in documenting his mental competency. Outside, Seattle's perpetual drizzle matched my mood. Max pressed against my leg as we walked to my battered Honda Civic, a stark contrast to Amanda's Mercedes and Derek's Porsche in the parking lot. The envelope seemed to burn in my pocket. Something about Uncle Richard's last words, his insistence that Max needed me, it felt like more than just concern for his beloved pet. I drove us to Uncle Richard's mansion, my temporary residence as Max's caretaker, until I could arrange something more suitable. The sprawling estate sat on a cliff overlooking Puget Sound, its Gothic architecture more intimidating than welcoming. Inside, Max led me straight to Uncle Richard's study. He scratched at the heavy wooden door, whining softly. "What is it, boy?" I knelt beside him, remembering that last night. What was Uncle Richard trying to tell me? I pulled out the envelope, breaking the seal. Inside was a single key and a handwritten note. "Dear Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm dead. And if I'm dead, it probably wasn't an accident. Max knows where to look. Trust him, trust no one else. The truth is in the walls. Uncle Richard." Max whined again, pawing at the study door. With trembling hands, I fitted the key into the lock. What I found inside would change everything I thought I knew about my uncle, my family, and the true price of billions. Part 2. The study looked exactly as it had the night of my last visit. Papers scattered across the mahogany desk, leather-bound books lining the walls, the faint scent of Uncle Richard's pipe tobacco still lingering in the air. But now, with his cryptic note in my hand, every detail seemed loaded with potential meaning. Max padded directly to the large oil painting behind Uncle Richard's desk, a moody seascape I'd always admired. The dog sat in front of it, looking back at me expectantly. "The truth is in the walls," I murmured, studying the painting. It hung slightly askew, something my perfectionist uncle would never have tolerated. Unless... Carefully, I lifted the painting from its hooks. Behind it was a wall safe, not unusual for a billionaire's study. What was unusual was the keypad beside it, displaying not numbers, but letters. "Any hints, Max?" I asked the dog half-jokingly. To my surprise, he barked once, then pawed at his collar. I knelt to examine the designer leather collar Uncle Richard had insisted Max always wear. There, embossed on the inside in tiny letters, was a word. Max WL 1969. My hands shook as I entered the letters into the keypad. A soft click, and the safe swung open. Inside was a laptop, several USB drives, and a thick folder labeled Parker Family Enterprises. Shadow Academy. But what caught my eye was a smaller envelope with my name on it, marked Read First. "Dear Ethan, if you're reading this, you've trusted Max and found my safe. Good, you'll need that trust in the days ahead. What I'm about to tell you will sound paranoid, perhaps even crazy, but I assure you, every word is true and documented in the files you found. Parker Family Enterprises isn't just a successful tech company. It's a front for something much darker. Money laundering, corporate espionage, even darker things I discovered too late. Your cousins aren't just greedy. They're dangerous. They've been running shadow operations for years, using my company's legitimate business to hide criminal enterprises. I discovered this 6 months ago when I found discrepancies in our international accounts. When I dug deeper, I uncovered a network of shell companies, illegal weapons sales, and evidence of multiple murders disguised as accidents. Amanda and Derek are at the center of it all. They've been systematically eliminating anyone who gets too close to the truth. 3 board members who asked too many questions died in accidents last year. When I confronted them with evidence, they made it clear I would be next. That's why I changed my will. The money can't go directly to you. They kill you before you could expose them. But they won't kill Max's caretaker, not right away. They need to wait for the sealed addendum, need to maintain the illusion of family concern. This gives you time. Time to document everything, to build a case that not even their army of lawyers can fight. All the evidence is on these drives, but it needs to be verified and connected. Be careful who you trust. The corruption runs deep. The only person I'm certain isn't involved is you, the nephew who never asked for money, who only ever showed genuine care for an old man and his dog. Max isn't just a dog, Ethan. He's a witness. The night they killed Jeremy Foster, my chief financial officer, Max was there. He saw everything. That's why they've never liked him, why they argued against me keeping a pet in the office. The camera in his collar recorded it all. Yes, that designer collar has a purpose beyond the safe combination. Every walk, every meeting, every conversation in my office or the grounds, Max has been recording. The footage automatically uploads to a secure server. The access codes are in the blue folder. You're probably wondering why I didn't go to the police. I tried. 2 months ago, I met with FBI agent Sarah Chen. The next day, she died in a car accident. That's when I knew how far this went, how careful I would need to be. I've spent the last month preparing everything, making sure you'll have what you need to finish what I started. The money isn't just money, Ethan. It's evidence. Every transaction, every shell company, every illegal deal. It's all documented. When they kill me, and they will, you'll be the only one who knows the truth. The only one who can stop them. Watch your back. Trust Max. And remember, sometimes the biggest secrets hide in plain sight. Love, Uncle Richard. Please check the fourth book from the left on the third shelf. And whatever you do, don't let them take Max. I lowered the letter, my mind reeling. Uncle Richard hadn't been paranoid. He'd been gathering evidence. And now, a noise in the hallway made me freeze. Max's ears perked up, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Moving quickly, I grabbed the laptop and USB drives, stuffing them into my backpack. The folder of shadow accounts went in next. But before I could reach for the fourth book Uncle Richard had mentioned, the study door burst open. Derek stood there, his expensive suit at odds with the gun in his hand. "Step away from the safe, cousin," he said coldly, "and don't make any sudden moves." Behind him, Amanda appeared, her perfect makeup not quite hiding her predatory smile. "Oh, Ethan," she sighed. "We really hope you just take the money and play along. Why did you have to go snooping?" Max positioned himself between me and my cousins, his growl deepening. Derek's gun hand twitched. "Call off the dog," he ordered. "We need to have a family discussion about Uncle Richard's unfortunate accident and how to prevent any more tragic deaths in the Parker family." I reached for Max's collar, pretending to grab it but actually pressing the hidden button Uncle Richard's letter had mentioned. If I was understanding everything correctly, this entire confrontation was being recorded and uploaded. Now I just had to survive long enough to use it. Part 3. Time seems to move differently when you're staring down the barrel of a gun, especially when that gun is held by your own cousin. In those tense moments in Uncle Richard's study, I learned more about my family than I had in 32 years of holidays and reunions. "Sit down," Derek gestured with a gun toward Uncle Richard's leather chair. "Let's talk about your future, however brief it might be." "The dog, too," Amanda added, eyeing Max warily, "though perhaps it's time to consider putting the poor thing down. So traumatized by his owner's death." Max's growl deepened, but I placed a calming hand on his head. "It's okay, boy," I said softly, thinking rapidly. The caller was still recording, still uploading. I just needed to keep them talking. "How long?" I asked, settling into the chair while keeping my backpack close. "How long have you been using the company for illegal operations?" Amanda laughed, a cold sound nothing like her usual society titter. "Oh, darling cousin. Parker Family Enterprises was never legitimate. Grandfather built it on arms dealing and money laundering. The tech business was just a very profitable front." Uncle Richard didn't know. Uncle Richard was a fool, Derek spat. He actually thought he'd built something clean, something respectable. When he started discovering the truth, he shrugged. "Well, we couldn't let him destroy 3 generations of careful work. So you killed him," I said quietly, pushed him down the stairs. "We gave him a chance." Amanda perched on the desk, her designer dress riding up to reveal a small pistol strapped to her thigh. Explained how things really worked. Offered him a choice: play along and keep his comfortable life, or have an unfortunate accident. "He chose wrong," Derek added, "just like you're choosing wrong right now. Although," he smiled unpleasantly, "we might be willing to make you the same offer. Your family, after all." I thought about Uncle Richard's letter, about the board members who died in accidents, about FBI agent Chen. And if I refuse? Then sadly, the grief of losing your beloved uncle proved too much. Amanda sighed dramatically. "You took your own life. Very tragic. Left a note and everything." She pulled an envelope from her purse. "See, we're quite thorough. What about Max?" The poor dog, devastated by losing both his owners so quickly, ran away. Derek's grip on the gun never wavered. These things happen. My hand tightened in Max's fur. The dog was still perfectly positioned between me and my cousins, his body tense but controlled. Uncle Richard had trained him well. So what's it going to be, cousin? Amanda stood, drawing her own gun. Are you smart enough to take the deal Uncle Richard refused? I looked at them, these polished, privileged people who'd spent years playing the role of loving family members while orchestrating murder and international crime. Then I looked at Max, thinking about Uncle Richard's last message. Sometimes the biggest secrets hide in plain sight. The fourth book from the left on the third shelf. What had he hidden there? Before I answer, I said carefully, I have a question. The shadow accounts, how did you hide them from the federal auditors? Derek's eyes lit up with pride. Always his weakness. Brilliant system, really. We created a secondary books using. A sharp crack interrupted him. The study windows exploded inward as black-clad figures repelled into the room. FBI, drop your weapons. Everything happened at once. Derek spun toward the windows, his gun raising. Amanda reached for her thigh holster. And Max, faithful, brilliant Max, launched himself at Derek's gun arm with perfect timing. The shot went wild as Derek fell. Amanda managed one step before 3 agents tackled her. More agents poured through the study door, filling the room with controlled chaos. Dr. Parker. A familiar voice made me turn. I'm Agent Roberts. We got your signal. I stared at her. My signal. She smiled, gesturing to Max's collar. The camera wasn't just recording. When you pressed that button, it activated a direct line to our tactical team. We've been watching the whole conversation. But Agent Chen was working undercover, investigating your cousins. Her death was staged to convince them they were safe. She helped me up. Your uncle contacted us 2 months ago with initial evidence. We've been building the case since then. The book, I suddenly remembered, moving to the shelf. The fourth book from the left was a first edition of The Hound of the Baskervilles, Uncle Richard's favorite Sherlock Holmes story. Inside, I found a final note. Dear Ethan, if you're reading this, the FBI's Operation Shadow Books is successful. Agent Roberts promised to protect you and Max. The evidence you found, combined with Max's recordings, should be enough to bring down not just Amanda and Derek, but the entire criminal network. I'm sorry for putting you in danger, but I knew you were the only one I could trust. The only one who saw value in loyalty and love over money and power. The sealed addendum to my will, it leaves everything to you. After Max, of course. He's earned his retirement. Take care of him. He's not just a dog. He's the best partner an amateur detective could have. All my love, Uncle Richard. In the weeks that followed, the full scope of the Parker family's criminal empire came to light. Amanda and Derek faced multiple life sentences. Dozens of corrupt officials and business partners were arrested. Parker Family Enterprises was restructured under federal oversight, its legitimate operations preserved while its criminal elements were dismantled. I kept my veterinary clinic but moved it to Uncle Richard's estate, converting part of the mansion into a high-end animal hospital and shelter. Max supervises everything from his favorite sunny spot in what used to be the study. Sometimes late at night, I sit there with him, looking out over the sound and thinking about Uncle Richard, about how he turned his dog's daily walks into a sophisticated surveillance operation, about how he saw past the family's polished facade to protect what really mattered. The media called it the billionaire's best friend case. The story of how a golden retriever helped bring down an international criminal enterprise. They loved the angle about the dog who inherited billions only to become a key witness in his owner's murder investigation. But I know the real story. It's not about the money or the crimes or even the clever surveillance. It's about trust, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between a man and his dog, a bond that reached beyond death to ensure justice. Last week, a young couple came to the clinic with their newly adopted rescue dog. We want to train him right, they said. Make him part of the family. I looked at Max, dozing peacefully nearby. His collar now just a collar, but no less special. The best training, I told them, is love. Everything else is just details. They didn't understand why Max wagged his tail at that, or why I smiled. Some secrets are best kept between a dog and his human. After all, you never know when you might need a faithful partner to help uncover the truth.